The life of Sacagawea. The name Sacagawea is one that you have probably heard before. Many of you probably remember her character from the movie Night at the Museum. But who was she really? Why was she famous enough to be in a museum? There are lots of stories about her, and I hope to give some clarity as to what she was really like. There are many guesses as to when Sacagawea's exact birthday is, but most scholars believe it was in May 1787 or 1788. She was a member of the Shoshone tribe and lived in Idaho. Due to the fact that the Shoshone people had no written language, there are several different spellings of her name, one with a J and another with a G. To get the most accurate information on Sacagawea, we look at Lewis and Clark's journal entries. They spelled her name with a G. Sakaga means bird, and Wea, woman. In 1800, at the age of 12 or 13, she was kidnapped by the Hidatsa Indians and brought to North Dakota. In 1803, she was sold to a French-Canadian fur trader named Toussaint Charbonneau, who lived among the Hidatsa, and she became his second wife. It was recorded in Lewis and Clark's journal that Charbonneau was not very kind to Sacagawea. Their journal entry from August 19, 1805, said they treated their women but with little respect and compelled them to perform every species of drudgery. While all of this was happening to her, the United States purchased a large portion of land from France, which came to be known as the Louisiana Purchase. Thomas Jefferson was the president and wanted the land to be explored, so he hired Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to do that. They began the expedition by sailing up the Missouri River to Bismarck, North Dakota. In October of 1805, Lewis and Clark landed in North Dakota and built a fort called Fort Mandan to stay at during the winter months. It was there where Sacagawea and her husband met the explorers. Now you may be thinking, why did they pick Sacagawea and Charbonneau for this journey? Lewis and Clark knew that they could never get over the Rocky Mountains without horses, and had heard that the Shoshone people had some. One online source says the Shoshones possessed horses that the expedition needed to cross the Bitterroot Mountains. The captains felt that because of her Shoshone heritage, Sacagawea could be important in trading for horses when the corps reached the western mountains and the Shoshones. While Sacagawea did not speak English, she spoke Shoshone and Hidatsa. Charbonneau was hired as an interpreter through his wife. On February 11, 1805, Sacagawea gave birth to her son, Juan Baptiste Charbonneau, and then joined the expedition west, carrying her newborn baby with her. She was excited to join because this meant that she would be reunited with her Shoshone people. During the journey, Lewis and Clark noticed how hard Sacagawea worked. She was good at finding edible plants to eat, knew the native languages, and represented peace and trustworthiness to the Indian tribes they came across. Her health also took a toll on the journey, most likely due to a miscarriage or painful menstrual cycles. It was enough to make Lewis concerned, as he wrote in his journal on June 16, 1805, "This gave me some concern as well for the poor object herself, then with a young child in her arms, as from the consideration of her being our only dependence for a friendly negotiation with the Snake Indians, on whom we depend for horses to assist us in our portage from the Missouri to the Columbia River." On August 12, 1805, Lewis and Clark crossed the Continental Divide, and the next day found a group of Shoshones. The leader of the tribe was Chief Camelweight, who was Sacagawea's brother. They were able to talk to each other and arrange the purchase of horses. The expedition continued west, but Sacagawea stayed with her family while Lewis and Clark headed to the Pacific Ocean. When they returned from their journey in 1806, Sacagawea joined them and they headed back to the Mandan villages. This was the end of their journey, Charbonneau received $533.30 and 320 acres of land for his help, and Sacagawea got nothing. Clark later wrote a letter about Sacagawea, saying, "Your woman, who accompanied you that long, dangerous, and fatiguing route to the Pacific Ocean and back, deserved a greater reward for her attention and services on that route than we had in our power to her at the Mandans." 6 years after the expedition, she gave birth to her daughter Lisette, and later died on December 22, 1812, at the age of 25. Clark later adopted her children. Now, you may be wondering, what influence did this Indian woman really have on the rest of the world? Well, at first, there was none. Between 1805 and 1905, there were less than 11 texts that mentioned her. Much of this had to do with the view of women during that time period. From 1905 to 1976, there were over 200 articles written about her. And why, you may ask, did she suddenly become so popular? Well, there are 3 reasons for this. First, after the Battle of Wounded Knee, Americans were trying to find ways that they could show love to the Indians, and Sacagawea became a cultural heroine because she was a figure of compliance. Second, she was an independent, strong woman and adopted the white woman's way of life through the way that she dressed, cooked, her moral values, and took care of others. She became an icon for white women to look up to during the suffragist movement. Third, she was a multicultural figure as well. According to Wanda Pillow, indeed, the membership of the Corps expedition, officers, enlisted men, trappers, explorers, a black slave, and an Indian woman is often presented as representative of the American democratic ideal. Present-day historical accounts suggest that the expedition succeeded precisely because of the diversity of the expedition party. To this day, Sacagawea has more statues honoring her than any U.S. woman in history and is seen on postcards, stamps, and coins. According to Lewis and Clark's journals, she was a hard-working woman that helped Lewis and Clark accomplish their expedition. Without her expertise, they may not have had completed their mission. Sacagawea is a significant part of American history that must not be forgotten.